Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm going to be talking a lot about investments, mostly financial, but sometimes I might dive into other areas like time, energy, relationships, and things like that. It's going to mostly depend on whether or not people are interested in that type of content, but I'm going to try to focus on investments first. Unfortunately, this just has to mean that I'm not going to be relevant for maybe about 42% of Americans who don't have savings. And unfortunately, it's maybe because they lack financial literacy that they don't have savings because they don't know that they should be saving money or how to do that. So I built this channel because I wanted to try and help people accomplish whatever financial goals they might want to. There's also another aspect, which is separating a lot of the BS out there from the good investment advice. You see a lot of people hopping into crazy things like crypto scams or all these other kinds of get rich quick schemes. I'll tell you what, most of the time that stuff isn't going to pan out. There's usually a bunch of bag holders and one person who skips away with everybody else's money. So I want you to be careful with your money. And if you have $1,000 that's sitting around, maybe it's in your savings account or you want to move it from your checking account and you're thinking, well, what do I do with this? One of the first things that you need to think about is what exactly is your end goal? Are you planning on retiring? Are you interested in saving up for a house? Because these kinds of things are going to be important for you to understand how you should save that $1,000. You could do a lot with that $1,000. You could take it to the casino and gamble it all away. Now, it might be surprising for you to hear this, but that's not a great idea. Instead, a lot of people will tell you to open up a savings account and they'll tell you to go to something like, Bank of America or something like that. But I'll tell you what, a lot of times these banks are taking your money and they're not giving you a lot back. So if you look at savings accounts in America with high interest, interest is how much money you get for giving people money. So interest is basically how much are you getting from a loan that you give to a bank. When you take that $1,000 and you deposit it with, let's say, whatever this is, Varo Bank, that means they're going to give you 5% APY. This is yearly. I don't remember exactly what APY stands for, but I think it's, annual percentage yield. Yeah, usually I just remember it's annual. So APY means every single year, if you deposit $1,000, you're going to get back 50, right? Let me do some quick maths. Yeah, I'm good at math. Cool. So basically, you want to try and find an area that will offer a really competitive interest rate because your money is just going to sit there and it'll grow over time. So let's see what compounding interest at 5% looks like. So, okay, here it is. You have a picture of, so you can see with any of these that when you have compounding interest, every dollar that you invest is going to grow and it's going to keep growing. So usually when you start saving, this is a good one, you start saving in your 20s, then you keep making more and more money and you keep putting that savings in. Well, guess what? Your money is growing while you keep putting more money in. So not only is the money growing because you keep saving more and more, it's also growing because the money itself is being loaned out to, let's say, a bank, and that bank is paying you back a little bit of money because they're saying, hey, thanks for letting us borrow your money. Here's some money back for you. Now, here's the thing about interest that I think a lot of people don't understand. Your bank is probably screwing with you and they're not giving you a good rate. So I use, let's take a look at how much interest rate do most big banks pay, all right? So most big banks give you this much, this teeny tiny amount. This is not 1%, this is 0.01%. Okay, so that means if I have $100, I'm not even getting $1 here. I'm literally getting about 1 cent for every $100 that I loan out for a whole year. So that's like I give you $100, and then after a whole year, you come back to me and you give me $100, and you also give me 1 cent. So guess what? I could have put that $100 on. I could have gone and maybe bought some carrot seeds and grown a bunch of carrots and then sold those. I could have bought in Pokemon cards and then sold those at maybe like a 20 or 40% increase. Let's see, Pokemon card valuation growth. So yeah, so you have some that grow at 22%. So if I just put it into a bank that gives me 0.01%, I would have gotten 1 cent back. Whereas, oh, this is over 25 years though. But you get the general idea. So I sold some Pokemon cards that after about a year, because a long story short, I think I made about $20 per box. And that's, I think, more than 50% of what I paid for it. So that wasn't just in 1 year. So you see, there's all these other opportunities that you have to make money that's much better than these banks. But the real reason why people put their money into banks and not into random things like Pokemon cards is because you can't easily access that money. You'd have to sell it, or you'd have to give it to someone who thinks that it's worth that much. And some people don't know how much those are worth. So this is why money is so important to think about from a growth perspective. You have to be careful who you give your money to, because money has value in and of itself. Money you think of as this thing that you just use to buy and sell things with, but money itself can be used as something of value. So let's talk about one of the places that I really like, Wealthfront. Wealthfront offers about a 4% interest rate on your cash. So if you have a checking account with them, I swear to God, I'm not sponsored by them, but I personally use them because I did a comparison and I realized, hey, they give a much more competitive rate. So I want to use Wealthfront because, my cash just sits there in a checking account. It's not a savings account. And instead of getting 1 cent for every $100 I put in, I'm getting $4 for every $100 I put in. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but you have to realize this is not for poor people. Investing is for people who actually already have money. So when you take a look at it from, let's say, your first $1,000, you're talking about getting $40 a year. What is that? That's maybe like a month of Netflix or something. I mean, it's not much, but this is the basis upon which you can start to build more and more wealth. The other thing that's a little bit unintuitive about wealth is exponential growth. So it sounds like a fancy term, but it basically just means when there's a curve like this. Humans are really bad at understanding this. Humans are really good at understanding something called linear growth, which is just lines. So you take a look at this. This is easy to understand. Over time, thing go up. Easy. And this is a great diagram because this is where people get really impatient, because when they're investing, they look at this and they compare it to the other thing, which is you just keep pouring money into the same thing over and over again, but you get a consistent result back. So this linear thing might be, oh, I'm just going to spend my money on everything that I do on a daily basis. So yeah, I'm going to spend it on rent. I'm going to spend it on food. I'm going to spend it on luxury items. I'm not going to invest. And my money, and I'm just going to save a little bit at a time. So I'm just going to save maybe, like $50 a month or something. This is linear growth, just adding 50, adding 50, adding 50. And this linear line is basically what happens when your interest that you're generating from your checking account is close to zero. When you're basically giving your money to the bank for free and letting them loan it and do whatever, make risky bets, whatever, that's going to be really, really generous of you, but not help you in the long run. Because instead, you could go to somewhere that has more competitive interest rates and make a lot more with them. Now, going back to understanding these interest rates and understanding what we want to invest in, let's come back to that idea of what do you actually care about? Because if you want to make sure that you're saving up for X, Y, or Z, maybe your first car, your first house, God forbid, your first marriage or something, you're probably going to want to make sure that your assets are growing consistently. So that's where putting money into a high yield savings account or a checking account that has really high interest rates makes sense. What does that mean, high yield? It just means making bank. High yield literally just means it's got a high interest rate. That's all I'm trying to say. And the thing about a savings account is I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's harder to withdraw money versus a checking account. I'm pretty sure, yeah, a checking account is for everyday transactions. So if your everyday checking account has a really good high interest rate, that's what you want to go for, because you want to be able to pay your rent and all that from your checking account, but still have the money that's just sitting there growing. Now, let's go back to what are some of the other ways that we want to save for retirement. I'm kind of brushing over this part right here because I think that there's so much we can dive into from a philosophical perspective, but generally speaking, I guess I'll touch on this a little bit. Wealth inequality is something that we all feel. Generally, if you're not one of those 50 billionaires in the world, you have some amount of wealth that is seemingly ever shrinking, or it's difficult to grow. And I think that wealth inequality is something that is unfortunately just part of the nature of our society. It's not easy to solve, and I'm not trying to solve anything like that here. I'm just trying to help individuals grow their wealth relative to where they were yesterday. And if that helps them at least survive in this world, not necessarily become rich or anything like that, but be able to afford things like education, housing, and food, that's what I want to help people accomplish. I'm not trying to gatekeep. I'm not trying to say, hey, only rich people can invest or learn about financial literacy. But what I'm saying is the reality of the things I'm teaching here are things that you actually have to have money to be able to do. It's part of that meme where it says, step one, have money. The rich get richer. And I'm not trying to say that it's necessarily a good system, but this is the system that we live in. There's not much to lose either when we talk about the investments that you make with the first few dollars you're saving. When you're saving that amount of money that you can easily make again, let's say within a month or within a year, it ends up being more helpful for your long-term growth if you're a little bit more risky. Not saying go crazy, go to the casino or anything like that, but if you try to invest in things that will probably grow more, but also have a bit more risk associated with it. And so that's where we have our main way of investing, the S&P, come in. The S&P is basically a collection of the top 500 biggest stocks. I forget by what, but what is it? Let's see here. Yeah, weighted by market cap. Basically, it's the top 500 biggest stocks in the stock exchange in the United States. That doesn't mean that S&P is only American stocks. It just means that it's the biggest stocks that are on this stock exchange. The most that have the most money trading around them. This is the part of the video where I think I probably